This is the second movie in about 2 weeks that I've seen that has to do somewhat with dogs. Is the new Netflix expedition drama Against the Ice worth the watch? And then, really, more importantly, what about the dogs? In 1909, Denmark's Arctic expedition was attempting to disprove the United States' claim to Northeast Greenland. Leaving his crew behind with the ship, the captain embarks on a journey across the ice with his inexperienced crew member. Battling extreme hunger, fatigue, and a polar bear attack, their mental hold on reality starts to fade, breeding mistrust and paranoia, a dangerous cocktail in the fight for survival. All right, just to get this out of the way at the very beginning, for any dog or really animal lovers, you're just going to want to skip this one, or at least you're going to want to start the movie about 40-ish minutes in. As part of the narrative, when the two go out on their journey across the ice, they each take a team of dogs to pull their sleds. Now, while not a lot is shown, there are some very horrible situations that involve the dogs, and it's very evident what's going on, even if we don't see the full actions. And really, had I not been watching this to review it, I probably just would have turned it off and then not continued. But if you're able to get past that part, which I understand is a massive ask, the cinematography is haunting and beautiful. I mean, you could almost feel the desolation and the cold coming from the Arctic as the camera captures this seemingly never-ending white of snow, and then you have all these flurries blowing across the surface. The grays and the drab colors also help to create this sort of hopeless feeling that then reinforces everything our characters are facing. This is based on a true story and also on the book that's written by the captain of their experience. Now, this is one of those that pits the sheer will of man against the unforgiving elements in a battle to just see who is going to prevail. Nikolai Coster-Waldau and Joe Cole star in this, and they give some great performances. I mean, as the journey progresses and the days turn to weeks and even months and months and months, the mental state of the men begins to wear down. And I love how the two craft their characters. I mean, they show the internal battle of keeping faith and maintaining inner resolve despite feeling utter hopelessness. The movie's a little over an hour and a half long, and for the most part, it does flow well. Now, there are portions where the narrative does slow down some, but it's also reinforcing some of the monotony that the characters are experiencing. And in order to not show us just day after day of exactly the same situations, there are some time jumps that are clearly delineated by on-screen titles, showing how many days the pair are into their journey. And there are some harrowing and scary sequences. I mean, not that I was scared because it's just not that sort of scary, but I would just feel for the characters. And then as I watched their mental deterioration as the journey seemed to just never end. Plus, they come across some horrible obstacles, and never mind the fact that the environment alone is just trying to kill them. That's also something that I liked in this. The setting is most certainly a character within the story, and it's probably the main antagonist aside from the characters' mental states. There's the freezing cold, the extreme winds, and then sheer desolation that is constantly challenging the pair. The dialogue between the two is delivered really well, and it becomes impactful later in the story. In the earlier portion of the film, the characters have this seemingly innocent, maybe even inconsequential conversation. But as time progresses, their words bring about some visuals that really help to illustrate the mental standing of the men. I like in these moments also that we see the mental swings that a person would take after being isolated for quite a while, especially when the circumstances seem so dire. And both of the actors are able to become sympathetic and engaging throughout this. As I was watching, it was hard not to think of the show The Terror because it also has to do with Arctic explorers who have to endure the extremes of the terrain. Now, this movie is fully grounded in reality, and it doesn't contain any supernatural or even oddities like the series does, but the experiences are very similar, reinforcing just how accurate the depiction of the landscape really could be. One small thing that made me chuckle is that along with Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Charles Dance also has a small role in this. And if you didn't know, I mean, they play son and father respectively on Game of Thrones, but in this one, they only share a minute or maybe two of screen time. And Dance is wonderful as a politician. He's pity-pinching and cautious when it suits him, but is also more than ready to stand up and share the limelight with anything successful. So from a historical standpoint, this is both informative and entertaining. The story gives us a really good look at what it could take to go on an expedition through the Arctic without the luxury of today's technology. But because of the violence involving the sled dogs, whether it's shown or even alluded to, this isn't something that I ever want to revisit. The second half of the story is thrilling, engaging, even anxiety-filled at points, which makes this a very mixed bag for me to review. Now, I wouldn't recommend it because of what happens to the animals, even though it is probably very accurate, But then I'd also really recommend this because of outside of the dog scenes, the storytelling is wonderful. The acting is convincing, the cinematography is stunning, and I love how the environment becomes a character that they have to outlast. There's no sex or nudity, but there is some profanity and some terrible violence. I'm going to have to go just sort of middle of the road here. I give Against the Ice 3 out of 5 couches. Are there any expedition type movies or shows that you enjoy? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.